Hi, and I just want to spend a little bit of time walking through the materials that I have provided as part of the Climate Hub Partnership Cohort 1 project. And the materials that I have prepared are part of the Bio 810 Grassland Fire Ecology and Management course that I teach at the University of Nebraska at Kearney. A couple things about the class is that it is an 8-week course for 1 credit hour. There are no prerequisites on the course, and so students in this course, they're graduate students, but some may have little, if any, exposure to grasslands, to ecology, to fire, or to management. And so a lot of the course is really focused on a lot of the basics, but also trying to have give students a sense of the complexities of grassland fire ecology and management as well. So for the course overall, just kind of give you some context of where the materials kind of fall in the bigger picture of things. If we're looking at course learning objectives, learning objective 3 is really where these materials come into play, thinking about that fire grazing synergism. Again, the course is an 8-week course, so students are expected, and I have prepared the materials to take, anywhere from, 4 to 6 to maybe 8 hours per week. Again, some students coming in with no background in ecology are going to take a little bit longer to get through the materials. Those who have a good solid background are probably going to get through it in less than 4 even. So it's really just because the student base is so variable, how much time the module will take is also quite variable as well. So if adapting to a different set of students, might give you some ideas of where to start and thinking about changes to make in making it your own or adapting it for your purposes. So the module again is module 5 is the one that is prepared for you. You can see it's about halfway through the course. Because students come in with, not necessarily with any background in any of the aspect of the topics of the course, we start pretty gentle and building up to the point where we are in module 5. When we look at the learning objectives for module 5 in particular, we can see these 4 that I have on the screen, thinking about, this relationship between fire and grazing. They evolved together in grasslands, and what that means. When we look at plants, particularly grasses is really what I look at, kind of focus on in particular, but thinking about how they respond to defoliation and how that is a similar yet different, whether it's defoliation due to herbivores or defoliation due to fire. So making some of those comparisons as well. And then spending quite a bit of time on the synergism between fire and grazing. We also look at how that synergism might look different or carry different ecological importance in different grasslands depending on the climate of those grasslands and kind of what that means in terms of the vegetation types that might be prominent. And then kind of to end the module, we bring in not just grazers, so those animals eating herbaceous material, but also the browsers that feed on woody vegetation as well, and what that means when we bring all 3 of those pieces together in recognition of the variation in climate as well. Okay, and so the content, the slides, the mini lecture videos that I have posted, there's 3 of them. I tried to keep them all to 15 minutes or less. But it's a big topic, and particularly for students who haven't had exposure to it before, I ended up taking a little bit more time than that. So you can see, anywhere from 14 to 26 minutes per video. One of the common threads throughout the course really, and really comes together in module 5 is that, we can think about grassland ecology in terms of those 3 kind of big drivers that we always talk about, herbivory, fire, and climate or drought. And so, kind of building up to this point in the course, again, really focused on the fire piece and a little bit of bringing in the climate piece. And then here in module 5 is where the 3 come together You know, and we spend quite a bit of time talking about that, which is why, you know, some of them are maybe a little bit longer than I would like. And again, you can kind of see as we look at the progression of the 3 mini lectures, we start just by introducing herbivory, mammalian herbivory in particular. Then we add in the second mini lecture, add in the fire component. And then the third and final mini lecture is where we bring in kind of the grazing, the browsing, the fire, all 3 together. Kind of a theme throughout is also that climate piece. The take-home message, then kind of where we end in that third mini lecture, is thinking, you know, I really like, of course it's an oversimplification, but I do like the simplicity yet elegance of the way, you know, this chapter from the ecology of browsing and grazing to kind of brings all of those pieces together, particularly for a course like this where students may not have a lot of background in fire or grazing or grasslands. So, you know, the point here is that, you know, when we have a grazer feeding on herbaceous biomass, right, that decrease in herbaceous biomass does 2 things. 1, it decreases the chance of fire, and 2, it gives those woody plants a chance to grow. So as that woody biomass begins to grow, that provides a resource for those browsers, right? As those browsers are feeding, you know, kind of concentrating more on the woody biomass, that gives the herbaceous plants a chance to grow, which increases the risk of fire, also increases resource space available for those grazers. And so we can see sort of, you know, the infinity circle of the browsing, grazing, fire relationships. And so again, you know, it is an oversimplification, but I think it works really well for students coming into the course, you know, with little background, and definitely, you know, give some areas for added inquiry for those who are interested. All right, so that's sort of the content portion of the module. In terms of assessments, for the course as a whole, students choose one specific type of grassland in the Great Plains, and for that particular grassland, you know, up until this point, they have looked at different aspects of it. They have looked at the climate, they have looked at the fire, kind of the fire regime that we tend to associate with that. They've looked at the vegetation associated. And so then now we are at the week 5, what I'm calling literature review assignment D. So it's the 4th in the series, where now they are tasked with finding some papers that look at the fire grazing synergism for that particular type of grassland. You know, one of the things students have found is that the amount of literature available for some Great Plains grasslands is lacking, and so in those cases I just asked students to find information for, you know, a grassland type that was similar in climate and at least broad types of vegetation as to the one that they were focused on. But you know, I think that was probably the biggest challenge students had with this particular assignment, and that they chose kind of small or obscure, poorly studied types of grasslands. Okay, and for the types of grasslands, we just used, you know, ecoregion. I think it was level 3 ecoregions from the EPA, kind of as our basis for picking. All right, so that's the main thing that they had. There's also a quiz, which is just, you know, really, did they do the reading? Did they watch the videos? It was a 5-point. They can take it as many times as they want until they get the score they're happy with, type of quiz. And then a discussion board where they were asked to kind of talk about the papers that they found as part of this literature review assignment and kind of compare notes as they looked at different kinds of, you know, each student is looking at a different type of grassland, and so, you know, kind of help to bring out that point that different climates, different vegetation types, even within a grassland, broadly defined, may have very different you know, the specifics of that fire grazing browsing synergism might be very different. And so that was what we did on the discussion board for that week. Then just to end, again, the materials were for Module 5, but the topic came up another time in the course, and that was during the last week of the course, Module 8, when we talked about the future of fire in grasslands. And so that's kind of where we brought in the management piece a little bit more. And here, kind of the relevant learning objectives for Module 8, there were some others, but the ones relevant to fire grazing synergism we're kind of thinking about the use of fire grazing synergism to help with managing wildfire risk or as a climate adaptation strategy. So again, those themes came up again in the course, but they're not included in the materials that have been provided for you. So feel free to, if you're interested, feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to share some of those Module 8 materials as well. And with that kind of is my project and kind of the materials that are available for you in a nutshell. Thank you.